We've built basic city houses, but a real medieval city needs taller, more complex buildings. Multi-story homes with irregular shapes, overhangs and a live-in feel. In this video, we are taking our modular city to the next level, with these expanded detailed houses that perfectly fit into the system we've been building on this channel. I will guide you step by step, showing you all the techniques to make them look great. So stick around, this is going to level up your tabletop city in a big way. Today, we're stepping up our city building game with tall, narrow multi-story houses. This will add verticality, complexity and variety to our modular city setup, making it feel more alive and dynamic. I've built simple houses before, but this time we're pushing the designs further with irregular shapes, multiple floors and unique silhouettes. Let's get started! Alright, the first step is designing the templates. Here you can see me pretending to do something, but I actually remembered to start recording after I had already finished them. So you will have to settle for a video of me staring at the screen. Next up, printing. By the way, these templates are available on Patreon and Discord. We will cut out the pieces and use them to trace onto corrugated cardboard. You can use foam core, but I went with the cheaper option. Once all the pieces are traced, it's just a matter of patiently cutting them out with a metal roller and a knife. With everything ready, I cut a bunch of foam strips, all 1 cm wide. I will be using a lot of these throughout the video, so I decide to cut them all at once instead of doing it 100 times later. For texturing, I used a ballpoint pen and then ran an aluminium wire brush over them to create a wood grain effect. The next step is assembling the pieces, starting with the inner sides. We will tape them together with some adhesive tape. Now we cut foam to size and use a hot glue gun to attach the beams to the exterior corners of the structure. Take your time and reinforce the interior with more glue or some extra cardboard supports. This will make the piece sturdier and easier to work with. We will do the same for the side extension. As you can see, I messed up here, but since I'm using a low-heat glue gun, I can quickly remove the piece without much trouble. Finally, we apply more glue and attach the side piece to the main structure, completing the house frame. Now, we trim the excess from the beams. Could I have measured them correctly from the start? Yes, but I find it easier to work with a larger piece and cut it precisely after gluing. Do it however you prefer. We will continue adding foam strips. As you can see, I eyeballed the measurements. I'm not aiming for perfect symmetry. In fact, I think having the house slightly crooked or with weird angles give it more personality. Alright, on to the next house. We will use the same technique. Tape first, then add cardboard reinforcements, and finally glue the foam strips onto the corners. For this structure, we will need to build the 3 floors separately and join them later. Before that, I added some extra cardboard reinforcements and then trimmed the excess foam with a sharp knife. Here we will also place beams to cover the angle facade section. To connect the floors, we need to build a base, so we have a surface to apply the glue. I used a piece of cardstock for this. Once it was glued in place, I trimmed the wall edges slightly with a knife and glued jumbo ice cream sticks cut to size. This way, we will have a solid surface to add hot glue and properly attach the first 2 floors of the house. For the top floor, we will follow a similar process. At this point, I ran out of jumbo ice cream sticks, so I switched to coffee stirrers. I cut them to size with cutting pliers, leaving small gaps in the corners so they wouldn't block the beam. I also glued some extra foam strips. These are just the same strips we've been using, but cut in half, 1 cm wide by 0.5 deep. Now it's time to glue the top floor and complete the basic structure of the second house. I'm pretty happy with the shape and proportions, so let's keep adding details and move forward with this exciting project. Now I'm going to add vertical beams, both on the facades and inner walls. You can arrange this however you like, aiming for a balanced look, but also allowing your creativity to flow. Just remember to leave space for the windows later. Alright, I've cut small beam pieces, about a couple of centimeters long, and texturized with a wire brush. On one side, I use a pen to draw the rings of a cat tree trunk. We will glue these as if they were crossbeams sticking out to support the upper floor. This will add a lot of character to the build. Finally, we will add a few extra foam strips to the facade for additional detail before moving on to the next step. If you're enjoying the build so far, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And also a huge thank you to all my patrons for supporting this project. Check it out if you want exclusive templates and extra content. Alright, let's make some doors using a 28mm Mini as a reference. I cut out a couple of foam rectangles and textured them again using a ball pump pen and an aluminum bristle brush. Next, I decide to glue the doors in place. Note, the smartest approach would have been to decorate the doors first and then glue them for easier handling. But oh well, not a big deal. I placed some beams on the sides and trimmed the excess flush. For the other house, I did exactly the same. To add a bit more variety, I decided to attach wooden planks made from coffee stirrers to one of the houses. I cut 5 cm long boards and glued them in place with hot glue, leaving space for a future window. To create the window opening, I used a hobby file, first poking holes in the cardboard, and then filing it down until I got the shape I wanted. Next, I covered the bottom part with more foam, hiding any irregularities. I had some form texture like masonry for my tower project, which I will link here in case you haven't seen it. I will use this to decorate the lower sections of the houses. I carefully glued in place with a bit of hot glue, and that's it. Oh, looks like I didn't have enough for both buildings, so I had to make a bit more. I ran the texture roller over some foam and done. If you don't have texture rollers, you can get a similar effect using a pen and manually adding texture, though it will take much longer. I also used a foil ball for some extra detailing, and now we are ready to finish gluing all the pieces. Alright, let's make the windows. For this, I will be using thin cardboard, like the can from Amazon packages. By the way, if you need materials, check the materials section in the video description. That will take you to my website, where you will find affiliate links. If you buy something, I get small commission at no extra cost for you. It's a great way to support the channel. Now let's glue a garlic mesh to the cardboard using PVA glue. Spread it out evenly and use weights to keep it in place while the glue dries. In the meantime, let's place some foam pieces that I cut at the necessary angles to act as roof beams. A little hot glue, press the pieces into the place for a few seconds and we're good. Next, we will use cardstock to create the roof base. Glue it down with hot glue and that's done. I ran out of cardstock, so on the other house you will see that the sheets don't reach all the way up. Doesn't matter, this will be all covered with foam shingles later, so it won't be visible. By the way, I also ran out of coffee stirrers, so I went to my local dollar store to get more. Now I can finish the wooden section. I glued them down, and if a gap was too small, I cut a piece to size and that's it. For the section where the main roof meets the side, I roughly cut the pieces to size. No need to be exact, since as I mentioned, this will be covered with shingles later. I also placed more beams here and there wherever they look good and made sense structurally. I tried using horizontal beams to clearly differentiate each floor of the building, making it look more realistic and ensuring the scale is immediately apparent at a glance. Meanwhile, the garlic mesh glue has dried, so we can now work on the windows. But first, let's cut some thin foam strips with the Proxon and add texture with the brush. To make the windows, we will draw the shapes using a permanent marker. I made two sizes, 4 by 2 cm and 3 by 2 cm. Using a knife, we cut thin strips. Then attach the top and the bottom parts of the window frame with hot glue. Next, we cut out the individual windows and finish by adding the side frame pieces. Repeat the process until all the windows are done. This takes some patience, so put on some music, a podcast, or better yet, a playlist with all my videos. That would be awesome. Okay, let's keep going. Now we can glue the windows in place, and this is my favorite part. Suddenly, the houses come to life, and you can really see the final result taking shape. Besides the windows, I decide to add even more beams to push the detailing further. Finally, I also placed a coffee stirrer frame around the small opening we made in the wooden section. This hides imperfections and gives it a much cleaner finish. Shingle time! We're going to texture and cut foam sheets for the roof. I actually learned this technique from HANDCRAFTED, so if you want to replicate it, just check out his tutorial. Using hot glue, we place a strip and repeat the process. Just make sure to stagger the shingles so they look natural and organic. For more complex roofs, you will need to cut pieces to fit, but it's really just a matter of using a knife or scissors as you go. The process is much faster than placing individual shingles, and I think the texture you get is way more interesting. Once we are done, we trim the excess material with scissors. Since the sheets we cut are very thin, this step is super useful. If some of the cuts are a bit too tight, like mine, you can just use a pencil to widen them slightly where needed. Now I'm placing the final shingle sheet and finishing the roof with a ridge beam. I added texture as usual and drew a cross-cut pattern with a pencil, gluing it down with hot glue, but to make the joint sturdier I will also add some pins. I will cut off the heads with cutting pliers and press them deep into the foam using a hobby file or any other tool. We will do the same thing for the other house, and then prepare the trim pieces to hide the ugly edges of the roof, adding texture first, then gluing them in place. To add even more detail and cover the beam joint right below where both roof sides meet, I made a small foam piece with a toothpick attached, a drop of hot glue, and we press the piece into place. Now, just like we did with the upper floor, we will add a small foam beam sticking out slightly to simulate cross beams. We repeat this on all facades, and that's it. We're down to the final details, and believe it or not, I didn't forget the chimneys this time. First, we textured the chimney pieces using a roller, or if you don't have one, a knife and a pen will do. This part isn't included in the template, I just eyeball it, so feel free to do the same. Before moving on, I cut some plastic straws into small sections using scissors and glued 6 together. I did this exactly in the same way in my Dwarven Houses video. I will link it here if you want to check it out. Once the glue dried, I prime it with black spray paint off camera, so the paint will adhere well later. For now, I will set it aside and come back to it later. Back to the chimney, I glue the two parts together using hot glue. Next, I cut a diagonal edge at the same angle as the roof where I want to place it. And yes, I eyeballed this part too. Using a permanent marker, I marked the exact spot where the chimney will go and removed the shingle in that area until the cardstock layer was visible again. A bit of hot glue and the chimney is in place. I repeated the exact same process for the other chimney, nothing complicated. Okay, time for the doors. I used the piece I've used before, split it in half and sand it down a little to make the hinges. Then I pressed it against the foam to create a small indentation and glue it down with PVA glue. I also added thin cardboard strips for extra detail and a small bed as a doorknob. I struggled to get it in place and then at some point while painting it disappeared, no idea when. But no worries, you can always add it back later. For the second door, I used this interesting piece and originally added triangular hinges, but I ended up removing them because I didn't like how they looked. Instead, I added some wooden crossbeams and that finished it off nicely. Last step before painting, applying some filler. This is just regular wall filler, the kind used for patching holes. I grabbed the cheapest one I could find at the dollar store. Using my fingers, I spread it over all the walls, covering any exposed cardboard. For tight spaces, I used cotton swabs to apply it more precisely. And that's it! Ready for paint! With the houses fully built, it's time to paint. Remember, all the materials I used are linked in the description if you need them. And if you want to share your own builds or ask for advice, join the Discord server. It's a great place to connect with fellow crafters. Alright, it's finally painting time. And guess what the first step is? Yep, you already know, the same as always on this channel, priming with 2 layers of black acrylic paint mixed with PVA glue. Once it's dry, we start by applying foam to all the walls. Heads up, this project takes time, and there are a lot of tight spots, so be patient. To paint more efficiently, I first focused on all the edges before filling in the center areas. While that dries, I overbrush the window lid with copper. Pro tip: use an old brush for this or you will ruin the top. Then we go back to the walls and use a soft dry brush with buttermilk color. Take your time with this step. If you make a mess, no worries. We start with these recessed areas first because they are the hardest to clean up later. Once done, I touch up any mistakes with black paint. Not mandatory but highly recommended for a cleaner finish. While it dries, we move to the stone sections, applying a neutral grey overbrush. Don't forget the top part, it's a small detail but it really stands out if left unpainted. Now onto the wood. We begin with the dark brown base coat, this time raw umber. No overbrush or dry brush here. We're fully painting the surface, aiming for a 90% coverage. Paint all the wooden planks, beams and crossbeams using the right brush size to avoid making a mess. For windows and finer details, I switched to a smaller brush. At this point, I realized I forgot to paint the chimney earlier. So now we do a neutral grey overbrush on that as well. And back to the wood. This time we apply a medium brown overbrush to add depth, light and shadow contrast. Brush strokes should always be perpendicular to the wood grain and don't press too hard. Now let's break up the monotony of the stonework. I use some of my homemade washes to add a subtle undertone. This will also go on the chimney. You can watch the recipes here. Once everything is completely dry, it's time for a super light white dry brush to make the texture pop and add depth. Oh, and remember that chimney top part we made from plastic straws? Time to give it a copper coat and set it aside again until the final assembly. Now let's finish the woodwork. This is the final layer and we will super light dry brush using foam or any other light brown. Use an old makeup brush and make sure there's barely any paint on it. Focus only on the edges, adding a few highlights here and there for a natural effect. Less is more, don't overdo it. For the doors, we paint the details using silver or any other metallic color, and we're almost done. The roof is last. I wasn't sure about the color. I wanted something different from the usual blue I've been using for the city, but it still needed to blend in nicely. So I went with purple. After applying the base coat, we let it dry, since the saturation will drop significantly. Once dry, we do a horizontal overbrush using a lighter, more saturated purple. This color will also darken once dry. And that's it! The chimney pieces are now completely dry, so we just add some hot glue to the base and attach them as the final touch. And of course, I've prepared a diorama to showcase the finished pieces. City Series is now really close to its end.
And that's it, a new set of city houses to expand our modular world. If you're looking for free adventures, maps and extra resources, check out myitch.io. You can check out the full modular city series here, or take a look to this other video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.